Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I feel like we've done this before. This is like Groundhog's Day for me. I'm looking around. I'm looking for Ted James right now because we had these type of debates in the past, and right after George Floyd, we had all this unity in this building. I remember, and I think I've said this before, Representative Bacala came in and we talked, and everybody came to the well, and you can find that picture, I'm sure, somewhere on the internet, and you can hear about it and see it. I prayed to that black Palestinian of Jewish descent that was born to an unwed mother, that was homeless, that was wrongfully convicted and killed by the government. And if he was here today in Louisiana, he wouldn't stand a chance. Because that's the type of person that we proclaim to pray to, but that we look down upon. I think somebody said, and it might have been Representative Knox, but I'm going to just repeat it. All votes aren't equal. There are some votes that weigh heavily or heavier than others. And this is one of those votes. And I'm going to phrase a question that he had or that he proposed, but I'm going to say it a different way. And I guess I'm reminded, I don't know how many of you remember that Tootsie Pop commercial, that Tootsie Roll commercial. It says, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? And it said, the world will never know. The real question is, how many racist acts can you participate in before you're considered racist? And I don't want to call you racist because I don't want to get into somebody's fragility. I don't want them to feel some kind of way. So I'm not going to say that. But I will say that if you vote for this bill, you are participating in a racist act. And that's clear. And so the question is, and I mean with this with all respect to the author, and I think Senator Carter was going through this and maybe just didn't get through it. So I'm going to try to finish it for him, maybe. I'm going to be presumptuous a little bit. But when you go and you file a bill to do away with a duly elected criminal clerk of court, when you file a bill to do away with Orleans Parish judges, when you file a bill to do away with some Fourth Circuit judges, and now you come in with SB 121, I'm not going to sit there and say that you're racist, but you certainly participate in some racist acts. The real question somebody mentioned to me, and I'm going to go back to the reason why I started off with Representative Bacala and our gathering with George Floyd. We started talking about Black Lives Matter. And I think some of us maybe at that time felt like Black lives didn't matter. But I had a friend of mine really pointed out something real astutely to me just a few weeks ago. He said, Black lives have always mattered. The question is, how do they matter? If you're talking about equality, maybe not so much, but if you're talking about in service to others, maybe a little bit more. So let's think about why some had to go through the Middle Passage. That was for the purpose of slavery. That was to make white people in America money. Our Black lives did matter a little bit. We were considered property, but they mattered a little bit. Then we went to sharecropping. Then we went to convict leasing. And now it's football and basketball and entertainment. Those are the things that matter. You know, I've been somewhat, I think, compared to other sessions, I've probably been a little bit quieter this session. And few people have recognized and noticed it. It's not necessarily because of disappointment. It's not necessarily because of frustration. It really is me being introspective and figuring out what's really going on, because I don't like to be taken advantage of. I don't like to feel like somebody's trying to pimp me. And some of that is what I somewhat feel like. Because I look at the other states and I see what's going on in Tennessee and South Carolina and some of these other places. And it's easy for me to say that those members of the legislature, that they are racist. Question is, why am I dancing around it with us? The truth is because we all know each other. We all have a relationship. And I feel like right now, that relationship is being taken advantage of. I feel like that relationship is just like a one-way street. A relationship is like, and I don't say this lightly, but it's almost like an abusive relationship. It's like you get to abuse me today, and then after the vote come and cry and try to shake my hand and tell me that you love me. Sounds like abuse to me. Sounds like just what one of those relationships is. And then, let's just be real. We don't play your game, and then the response is, how dare they? Or, you know, it could get worse. That sounds like power-based violence to me. It sounds like you just taking advantage of a situation because you can. Sounds like because you then want to be the victim in this. You can sit up here and paraphrase racist people from the past, and there's no penalty for that. And that's what we're dealing with. You know, I had a couple of years ago, I had the privilege of going to the Anti-Lynching Museum over in Montgomery, Alabama, Equal Justice Initiative. And I got to see all the things that were there, all the history. I'd encourage anybody who hadn't gone, you can drive it in a day and come back and see everything. It gives you something to see. And you know, part of the problem when you go this late in the game, somebody's already said some of the things that you wanted to say, but you've heard it before. You've heard it from Rep. Green. You've heard it from Rep. Knox. You've heard it from Rep. Landry. You've heard it from some others. Heard it from Rep. Newell. Make sure I get that right. Where you at, Candace? This wasn't given us. This wasn't given us at all. This was blood, sweat, tears, and death. And I know young people don't want to hear that somebody died for your right to vote. But y'all ain't young. You should understand exactly the magnitude of what's going on here. You know, it reminds me of the biblical story of the widow that puts money in to the collection. And Jesus talked about those given from their surplus and those given from their need, their necessity. Truth is, after y'all vote on this today, y'all can walk in here and nothing changes for you. This is your surplus. That's what this is. For us, this is out of our need. Our lives change dramatically. You know, it's like the business tale of the chicken and the pig. And they say that they want to go into business together. And so the pig says to the chicken, well, what do you want to call it? And he says, let's call it eggs and bacon. And the pig says, I got to reconsider that. Because for the chicken, it's out of his surplus. For the pig, it's a total sacrifice. And that's what this is for us. For you, this is your surplus. For this is our total sacrifice. And I've tried to explain it as best as I could, and I wish I didn't have to go to childhood fables and biblical stories to make you understand. Here's the thing. Again, I've said this before in committee. It amazes me in a room full of leaders that we got so many followers. Either you're going to vote what your conscience is. This vote is either going to reflect your conscience or it's going to reflect your cowardice. One of the two. There's no way around it. Either you're voting your will, and if that's your will, then fine, we disagree fundamentally. But if you're telling me that's not what you believe, and you came here to be a coward, you need to leave. You no longer need to be here, because I don't believe that the people who elected you to come here asked you to be a coward. I know the people who elected me didn't do it. I know they wanted me to tell you just what I'm telling you right now. You know, we talked about Colfax. We've talked about Opelousas before. We've talked about the 3 that died in Mississippi. We haven't talked about Medgar Evers. We haven't talked about Dr. King in that matter of him being assassinated. We haven't talked about El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, better known or otherwise known as Malcolm X. We haven't talked about the Kennedy brothers. All these people did not want to die in vain. I'm sure they didn't want to be martyrs. I don't think anybody in here wants to be a martyr. But we all have principles that we're standing up for. We all have things that we're believing in. The problem is, for a lot of us, we're tired, and black people have always been the ones that pay the cost for this legal experimentation that we're in right now. Thank you, Mr. Ones that always have to pay the price, and people, we've said it before, it's exhausting and we're tired of it. And so I don't know exactly what else we need to do. But what I will say is this. I am so proud of the way that the caucus has conducted itself. The Democratic caucus, the Black caucus. Because I can tell you, I think every one of us have come up here respectful. And it's hard to be respectful when you're facing a blatant sign of disrespect. But that's what's been asked of us, and that's what we've done. In fact, that's what we've always done. We've never really resorted to political violence. The political violence and the terrorism and everything that's happened has really been as a result of us trying to get equal rights and an access to vote I mean, that's what Jim Crow was all about. That's what the lynching was all about when people were trying to register people to vote, when people were just trying to get equality. That's when the political violence occurred. And I know Rep. Baham had a bill the other day. Y'all could even vote for January 6 terrorists.
Representative Jordan.
You know, I'll just say these three things before I go. One, the court in Calais, there's no doubt, the court got it wrong. Just like they got it wrong in Plessy, just like they got it wrong in Dred Scott, just like they've got it wrong in Citizen United and some of these other cases. The court has gotten it wrong. Other thing I'll tell you is when we were talking about a press conference not long ago, a few months ago, I talked about the Trump two-step. This is just the second phase. We understand that he is going to get what he wants from you guys, and so there are three branches of government. There's the executive branch, there's the judicial branch, and there's the legislative branch. We will use every tool at our disposal to make sure it happens. But I will say this in closing. This building, as fair as we want to say that it is, this is a building actually that honors racism. Because I was telling you about EJI, and when I went there, and they got a Hall of Shame there. One of the people in the Hall of Shame is Alan Ellender. Alan Ellender said granting civil rights would lead to violence, destruction, looting, and bloodshed. He also said that blacks could not govern themselves, even though we were the first in the 1800s, and right now I had to go there for a second. We were the first to have integrated public schools and say that we could not have discrimination in public accommodations. So we certainly were capable of that. But we've got a building, a room named for him within this very building, where when we get outside of this building, he is in a hall of shame.
Representative Jordan.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes, sir.
I'll leave with this. Please, history is watching, the world is watching, and they're not going to be naming any rooms in this building after you unless maybe your name is Francis Thompson. So do the right thing.
Thank you, Representative Jordan.